Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm calling the May 2nd City Council meeting to order. And as a reminder, we continue to have a remote aspect to our meetings. Both staff and members of the public may be participating in tonight's meeting remotely via WebEx. Council President Walsh has an excused absence this evening. And the first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, so I welcome you to join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So for our special business, we have a lot of proclamations to do this evening. I'm going to move over to the dais and start. So the first proclamation we have this evening is for the Issaquah Schools Foundation, and it is proclaiming that May will be Issaquah Schools Foundation Month. So May 2022 is hereby declared Issaquah Schools Foundation Month. This marks the 35th anniversary of the foundation. The Issaquah School Foundation has contributed over $13 million to enhance educational opportunities in our community, and we are grateful. Thank you for your instrumental work. I'd like to see if Cornell Atwater, the Executive Director, would like to come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Mary Lou Polly, so much. And then also for the City Council members for having us here today. So as the Issaquah Schools Foundation Executive Director, and on behalf of the Board of Trustees, our staff, and our community members, we just would like to say thank you. Thank you for the support. The foundation has been an integral part of the fabric of our district in supporting our businesses, our community partners, and most importantly, our students. And so we are very, very grateful for that support. We continue to strive to put our students first during good times and some struggling times coming out of the pandemic. And the Nourish Every Mind spring fundraiser that we have is an instrument for us to be able to do the good work that we do to help our students and our very diverse families in our community. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for honoring us with this proclamation.
Thank you, Cornell.
You're welcome.
Next, I would like to ask Councilmember Hall to join me. So Drinking Water Week, May 1st through 7th, has been celebrated for more than 40 years by the American Water Works Association. Its members have used Drinking Water Week as the unique opportunity for both water professionals and the communities they serve to recognize the vital role water plays in our daily lives. I thank our public servants that protect and maintain our water systems and ask everyone to do their part in conserving and protecting this vital natural resource. Deputy Council President.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to add my thanks to city staff and Cascade Water Alliance staff that help provide clean, reliable drinking water to our residents and businesses here in Issaquah. I've had the opportunity to work with many of our city and Cascade staff on these issues and meet with many of them, whether it be on maintaining or improving our current infrastructure or focusing and keeping top of mind both affordability, quality, sustainability, best practices. And I want to thank you for that. Thank you for your commitment and your passion that you show in this work day in and day out. And I want you to know that this council, surely the administration and the community deeply values and appreciates your work. And then also just to say, of course, thank you to all of our public works staff. And we will be honoring and recognizing your service to this community later this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Council President. I believe we have our Public Works Director here who would like to make a few comments.
I'm Bob York. Can you hear me first of all?
We can.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Deputy Council Member and Council President Hall, and thank you, Council members in general, for your support over the last many years I've been part of the Issaquah family. I'm Bob York, Public Works Director. I've been working in this profession for well over 40 years, and though I've seen everything transform from way back when to what now. So a few words of my own National Drinking Water Week is this week, May 1st through 7th. I've been asked to say a few words, and I came up with a few words of my own. It takes a lot of effort to bring clean, safe water to inside your house day and night for significantly less than 2 cents per gallon. I think we're the envy of other home delivery services in that respect. And just one other thing quickly, we in Issaquah are very lucky that we happen to be in a unique location in the western United States where no one's talking about water shortages like so many of our counterparts all over, but Idaho, Utah, the Southwest. So almost everywhere in the West U.S., they're talking about the increasing concerns about just the availability of water. We're lucky, and so let's be aware of all these facts when we celebrate this day, this week together. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And also, as Deputy Council President said, also to our partners at Cascade Water Alliance. The next proclamation, Public Service Recognition Week. May is a month of many celebrations and many proclamations. The City of Issaquah's employees, elected and appointed officials, and volunteers are instrumental to making our community more sustainable, vibrant, connected, and safe. And we kick off this month of May with Public Services Recognition Week from May 1st through May 7th. This is a nationally celebrated event since 1985, and it honors the public servants who serve the community and its residents, businesses, and visitors. So thank you so much for all the work that you do. The City of Issaquah's employees and volunteers, elected officials, and appointed officials are instrumental in making our community more sustainable, vibrant, connected, and safe. The Issaquah community receives services every day by public employees who serve in a variety of valuable roles, including administration, parks and community services, community planning and development, public works, police, fire, municipal court, finance, communications, and the creativity and diversity of perspectives of our elected and appointed officials inform and advise the work of the city. And it's integral to the quality of service and life in our community. The City of Issaquah's public servants strive to provide excellent and timely customer service to the residents, businesses, and visitors in the city. And employees elected and appointed and volunteers work every day to make our community more sustainable, vibrant, connected, and safe. So thank you very much. And I believe Stephanie Johnson may be here to say a word about Public Services Recognition Week. Stephanie.
Good evening, Mayor Polly and council members. Stephanie Johnson, Human Resources Director. I'd like to thank you for this proclamation this evening. As Human Resources Director, there's certainly not an argument for me that our staff are key to the city's success. I personally find joy in working alongside these staff every day. I see our staff working diligently to model our salmon values of sustaining trust, acting with integrity, leading with respect, mastering communication, owning actions, and being engaged. Our staff have made crucial contributions in our community. They've displayed remarkable resilience and dedication, especially throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, to ensure countless essential services for our residents and to keep us propelling forward. This has been no easy feat for anyone. Thank you to the staff that show up every day to make Issaquah a better place to work, shop, live, and recreate. City Council and Mayor Polly, thank you for your support in our efforts to make Issaquah a workplace destination. I'm thrilled to be celebrating our staff this week and to accept this proclamation on behalf of our wonderful staff.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. The next proclamation for this evening, we did celebrate Administrative Professionals Day on April 27th, and this is observed annually in workplaces around the world to recognize the important contributions of administrative support staff. And administrative professionals play an essential role in coordinating the office and governmental operations within the city of Issaquah. They are vital contributors in today's team-oriented work environment, and they are key frontline public relations ambassadors for their organizations. The work of administrative professionals today requires advanced knowledge and expertise in communications, computer software, office technology, project management, organization, customer service, and many other responsibilities. So it was a great pleasure to celebrate on April 27th. And I'm going to call back our HR Director, Stephanie Johnston, for some additional comments.
Thank you, Mayor Polly. Wow, I get to double up
You do.
tonight with double thank yous. So as Mayor Polly stated, Administrative Professionals Day was observed this past Wednesday, April 27th. These staff are all across through the organization in various departments and divisions. I don't know there's a better way to describe these individuals than glue. Our administrative professionals have a servant's heart, and many of us could not do the work we do without their outstanding customer service and willingness to come to the aid of a coworker or program. We honor them not just on Administrative Professionals Day, but every day they make countless contributions in their respective roles and responsibilities. And again, I thank you, City Council and Mayor Polly, for recognition of these staff. And again, I'm thrilled to be celebrating them this week.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next, I'd like to invite Councilmember Hunt to join me. Professional Municipal Clerks Week is May 1st through 7th. This recognizes the professional link the city's clerk office provides to the residents, elected and appointed officials, and other agencies of government. And I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Hunt.
Thank you. This is Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and I wanted to read the proclamation because I think one of the things that I really appreciate about the clerks is that you keep us on track. So I thought I'll stay on track and read the proclamation. Whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world and is the oldest profession among public servants. And whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. And whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. And whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the profession through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. And whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments and contributions of the professionals who serve in Issaquah City Clerk's office. Now, therefore, I, City Council Member Hunt, do recognize the work. Do recognize the week of May 1st through 7th, 2022 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week. And I just wanted to say thank you so much to our city clerks, and I'm honored to give this to Clerk Gieser. Thank you so much for all of your help.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Councilmember Hunt. And we do have the full clerk's office here tonight. So myself and, Chris Grabowski. Tammy, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Tammy. I am the public secretary in the city clerk's office, and I'm just thrilled to be here.
So you all are very familiar with our work in the clerk's office, supporting our elected officials and our city as a whole. We see one of our primary roles as to increase public access to government. That's through making sure our meetings are open and accessible and that our records are accessible. Tammy does an excellent job of being the steward of public disclosure requests and providing excellent customer service and expertise in that area. We also are the city's records managers. Just a few days ago, Chris and I were neck deep in dusty annexation records from the 1940s and 50s. Meanwhile, Tammy has become an expert at extracting information from iPhones. So records management is a real challenge in the year 2022. We're dealing with decades of paper and digital records and ever-evolving technology. That role keeps us busy and on our toes. We're also glad to support our city's boards and commissions and meeting procedures and certain coordination and administrative support. So we're so grateful to serve the city, and thank you for the recognition tonight.
Thank you so much, Tisha. And thank you for bringing your whole team. That was awesome. Next, I would like to invite Councilmember Ray to join me because May 1st to 7th also happens to be Correctional Officers Week, and Issaquah has a team of correctional officers. We recognize the correction officers as essential to our justice system. They are skilled professionals who must act as counselors, communicators, educators, and much, much more. And I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Ray to talk about the proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor Pauley. I'm going to repeat some of the things you just said, and I won't say them as well, but I will try. This week, we want to recognize all of the corrections officers who have an essential role and part in our justice system here in this community. We ask a lot of the men and women who supervise offenders in our correctional facilities. Their dedication, hard work, and sacrifice are essential to operating our facility here in Issaquah. Our corrections officers are skilled professionals who must act as, stealing your words, counselors, communicators, educators, experts in crisis intervention. Absolutely the case. And then our corrections team is committed to ensuring that we maintain a safe and secure, humane operation in our jail facility. So please join me in thank and recognize all of our corrections officers for their contributions to our community.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Ray. And I'm just checking, is our interim police chief here? Would you like to add some comments? That's great. Chief Schwan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm very proud and appreciate all those who showed up 24/7 through COVID and cared for all our guests. With an average daily population of 50 people residing in our facility, thank you for the proclamation, and special thanks this week for all and all year long for the work the COs do around the clock. They often go sight unseen and they do an amazing job, and I appreciate them and the opportunity to represent them this week.
Thank you very much, Chief. Moving into the week of May 9th through 13th, Economic Development Week, and I'd like to ask Councilmember DeMichelle to join me down at the dais. This is a chance for us to recognize our Economic Development Office and its vital role that they have in promoting the economic well-being and quality of life in our community. And I'll hand it over to Councilmember DeMichelle.
Thanks. Well, I want to acknowledge that we have a fabulous economic development group in our city, and they certainly demonstrated that during the last 2 years. Visibly, we saw the streetery, which was a huge success we put in place, but more recently we've seen the little parklets going up. But that's the visible part of what they do. During the pandemic, they conducted surveys of businesses and they did outreach to virtually every business in our community. They came forward with proposals for funding so that we could support them during a really difficult time. After those funding proposals were approved, they worked on the distribution of those funds. And then again, outreach to so many businesses in our community as that was taking place. I personally have had the opportunity to take advantages of their services, referring people that I've met through our regional committees that we serve on and out in the community. And every time I've heard back from the people that I referred and just thank me so much because the services that they rendered were absolutely excellent. So congratulations to our Economic Development team and congratulations on Economic Development Week. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Councilmember DeMichelle. I believe we have our Economic Development Manager with us as well. Jen, would you like to share a few words?
Yes, and we also have Betsy Fulton, if you'd like to turn on his areas on his camera as well. So thank you, Mayor Pauley, for the recognition and City Council. So Economic Development Week is next week, and it celebrates the contributions of economic developers across the nation. The image on the slide I found a few months ago, and I believe it is a great way to portray what we do. Because often people think we throw money to businesses, we give away property or land. We don't do that. We don't believe that business interests are more important than all other voices in the community. But what we do is support businesses and the community through marketing, retention, and attraction for the ultimate outcome of increased prosperity, job opportunities, and increased standard of living for all in our community. this gives a really great view of what we do. But we're very lucky to have the wonderful support of this administration and council. And I want to say thank you for allowing us not only respond to help our businesses over the last 2 years get through a very tough time, but also the continued support for our businesses to locate and grow in Issaquah. I joined the city almost 9 years ago when the city was expanding the economic development department. I wanted to be part of this investment in the partnership with the chamber to better support our business community. Benton Copeland joined the city in mid-2020 in the heat of things during the pandemic and has been an invaluable member to the team to support businesses through the pandemic. But he's going to be a great person to continue to help businesses and support our tourism industry moving forward. So partnerships are super important in our work, and tonight we want to thank the Economic Vitality Commissioners and the Vision Partners, some of them who are on the call tonight. I believe I see on the attendees, Kathy McCory and Mark Clemens from the Chamber and DIA respectively. And just a little glimpse of what's ahead. We're creating a podcast to share what's going on in the business community, what businesses are coming, what types of businesses are looking at our community, and hear the voices from our business community. So look forward to having that out in the community. So overall, we appreciate the support of economic development. We appreciate the businesses that add to our vibrant community to help promote economic well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you, Benton. The last staff proclamation that we're going to have tonight is for Police Week, which is May 11th to 17th, and it recognizes the police department, which has grown to be a modern and scientific law enforcement agency, and the professionals who unceasingly provide such a vital public service. And I'm going to turn this over to Councilmember Joe.
Thank you, Mayor Pauly. So as most stories start out, it was a dark and stormy night in 2021, and there was a pounding on my door in my apartment. As I answered the door and asked who it was, all I heard was gibberish back, a little mumbling. And I looked out the little peephole there, and it's dark, and I couldn't really see who it was, but he was a big man. That's all I knew. He pounded again, yelled at me incoherently. I asked who he was. Couldn't get any information. So I picked up the phone and I called 911. And the calm person on the end of the line helped talk me through my fear at that moment. And it was right after the George Floyd protest in the summer. And I was concerned that if the police showed up, it could be a bigger problem. So the 911 operator calmly took me through things and said that they were going to send a unit over. And so that put me at ease right away. And as I looked out the window, I saw the police arrive. And their first instinct wasn't to have their guns drawn or to have their batons out or to have, a mode of trying to, suppress the situation with physical force. They calmly approached the person. He had his hands up. He laid down on the ground at that point because I came to find out that he was suffering a health problem that was impacting his speech and impacting his cognitive abilities. The police put a coat underneath his head, talked him through, and eventually an ambulance came and showed up. And that to me, I'm not going to read the whole proclamation, but one of the whereases says, our police department serves the people by safeguarding life and property, protecting them against violence or disorder, and protecting the innocent against deception, and the weak against oppression or intimidation. And that really sums up my story there. The police showed up to protect me as a person and my property, potentially. They showed up and wanted to quell any violence or disorder that was going on. And they also wanted to protect the innocent, which turned out to be the individual suffering a health problem, protect the innocent against oppression or intimidation. And I really appreciated the police being there when I needed their help. And so, Paula Schwan and the police department, thank you very much for all your help. We appreciate all your work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Joe. Interim Chief Schwan, still with us. Would you like to share a few words about Police Week?
Yes, thank you very much. Mayor, and thank you for the kind words, Councilmember Joe. This year, we are celebrating 65 years with the Issaquah, as with the Issaquah Police Department and being a department itself of law enforcement. A special thanks for all the IPD officers and their protection around the clock 24/7 in this community, holidays, birthdays, etc., through all emergencies and staff challenges. The support from this community has been amazing, and the council as well. We recognize the officers this week in May and remembering you all year as an honor. Thank you for the council, the mayor, and city admin support with this proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. It has been a difficult couple of years, so it's with great pride that we make this proclamation today for you and all your employees. So that wraps up the amazing month of May. Thank you to government workers, month of May. Thanks to everybody who helped. I do have one additional proclamation. This one is on affordable housing, and I'd just like to take a few minutes to go through it. Whereas all people should have access to safe, healthy, and affordable homes within communities that provide opportunity. And whereas the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development defines affordable housing as housing on which the occupant is paying no more than 30% of gross income for housing costs, including utilities, and that the COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated many existing financial constraints for low and moderate income households, and that everyone benefits from affordable housing, including the people who reside in these properties, their neighbors, businesses and employers in the community as a whole, that the need for affordable homes across King County prior to the COVID-19 pandemic and the number of people experiencing homelessness has remained at a crisis level. So I, Mary Lou Pauley, Mayor of the City of Issaquah, do hereby proclaim May 8th to 14th to be Affordable Housing Week. And we do not have anyone to accept this proclamation tonight, but I thought it was important to read it. And a little bit of it is highlighted in my mayor's report, as well as you have a housing report memo in the agenda packet this evening. So thank you all for being patient with all of our proclamations. The next item we have on the agenda this evening is audience comments, and members of the public may address the council at this time, whether you are here in person or attending virtually. Those who signed up in advance to make comments will be called on first. And if you are joining us virtually and like to make comments, please raise your virtual hand. If you're on a phone, press *3, and if you have joined by computer or smartphone, look for a hand icon. This varies by device. One option may be to go to the participant panel and choose the raise hand icon in the lower right-hand corner. If you are in the room and did not sign up, I will ask for other speakers, so don't worry, we'll get to you before we close this portion of the meeting. City Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak for general audience comments this evening?
Mayor Cornell Atwater signed up but made her comments. Would you like to make additional comments, Cornell? Okay. And I'm monitoring the online participants. I don't see that anyone else has indicated a desire to speak.
Thank you, City Clerk. So just as a reminder, written comments can be submitted at any time to citycouncil@issaquahwa.gov. I'm going to go over to Deputy Council President Hall to ask if there were any email comments that you would like to summarize on tonight's agenda topics.
Thank you. There are. We had one individual write in about items appearing on this evening's agenda. With regard to ID 1062, which recognizes Public Service Recognition Week, this resident supported our efforts, but made the distinction between public service and public good, and wished to better understand how the city goes about supporting public service activities. And with regards to ID 1137, our new business item on the agenda this evening, the same resident shared their concerns with the item and described how our position is one of public trust and our compensation shouldn't necessarily be derived by a simple wage times hours formula. But they also expressed appreciation for the time and efforts of the council, and that was the only item of public comment we received by email. Thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Council President. We will move on to committee and regional reports, and we'll start with Councilmember Joe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Cascade Water Alliance met on May 27th. Some of the highlights, there's been a little bit of vandalism and illegal dumping on the Cascade property. So we need to keep an eye on that. It seems to be on the rise. There was a clean financial audit that they ran, and that'll be in the report that I'll send off to you. Also, the most important thing is they're going to convert from using an outside firm for their legal work to having an in-house counsel. The in-house counsel is the current person from that firm that's working on Cascade Water Alliance issues. She is retiring or wanting to scale down her work a little bit, so she'll be in-house with Cascade. It is seen as a budget-saving move by Cascade, and it's really nice to have your attorney right down the hall where you can ask them questions as opposed to having to pick up the phone or do an email. So it's going to be advantageous to Cascade and should be a good way that they're going to be able to really focus on their work a little bit better. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Joe. Next is Councilmember DiMichele.
Thank you, Mayor Polly. On April 20th, I attended the Regional Transit Committee meeting. Metro is currently exploring options for fare collection. Fares represent about 25% of the agency's income. The fare boxes in use today are old and would require a multi-million-dollar investment to either retain or replace. It doesn't matter which option, either one is going to be very expensive. And many will be obsolete in about 5 years. In addition, fare evasion has grown exponentially, possibly as a result of the free rides that Metro provided early during the pandemic. Metro is exploring the possibility of removing all of the fare boxes, eliminating cash collections, and transitioning to using ORCA cards only for fare collections. But there are questions about how that would impact senior citizens, low-income riders, and tourists coming into the region for short visits and others. So this was quite again, another robust discussion at the Regional Transit Committee. Decisions will be forthcoming in the next year. We also received a progress report on Metro's rapid ride implementation and on electrification of the fleet with a new all-electric bus space recently opened in Tukwila. So that ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember DiMichele. Councilmember Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have one report for an upcoming meeting on May 4th, which is this coming Wednesday. The Regional Water Quality Committee will meet, and we have two briefings on our agenda. One is on the King County Executive proposed sewer rate and capacity charge, and the other is on the Clean Water Plan, which is a response to some committee inquiries and also a response to an auditor's management letter. So I will report back once I have had that meeting, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Hunt. Councilmember Ray.
Thank you, Mayor Polly. The King County Growth Management Planning Council met on April 27th in a virtual meeting. There were 4 items on the agenda. We received a legislative session update from the Department of Commerce. The report was in-depth and quite extensive, and I'd be happy to share the entire report with the council if you are interested. We also received a briefing from the City of Sammamish's plan to reevaluate their growth targets. When the county plan was developed in late 2021, there were unresolved utility infrastructure issues that made committing to a growth target difficult for the City of Sammamish. Those issues have been resolved, and Sammamish is working on restating their growth targets. The GMPC Affordable Housing Committee, AHC, responding to GMPC's request to recommend an accountability framework for the countywide planning policy housing chapter, and incorporating new data and guidance from the Washington State Department of Commerce on affordable housing targets and the county-wide need projections. They recommended amendments to the current countywide planning policies necessary to implement the accountability, and GMPC has provided feedback on the proposal and will be taking action to adopt the recommendations at a future meeting. And finally, GMPC was briefed on a framework to analyze urban growth area expansion policies and the 4-to-1 program. Also, the next Eastside Fire and Rescue Board of Directors meeting is scheduled for May 12th at Eastside Fire and Rescue Headquarters. The agenda has not been set at this time, and the meeting will be held in person. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Ray. Councilmember Martz?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Puget Sound Regional Council Growth Management Policy Board will next meet on Thursday, May 5th from 10 till noon. It's going to be a hybrid meeting still, probably June, I think. Sounds like everybody's going to be going back to on-site, but this will still be hybrid. And there's no action items, but there are a number of discussion items, including a recap of the 2022 legislative session, a review of Vision 2050 implementation actions, and a discussion on 2024 comprehensive plan update process and PSRC support and certification. There is no SCA PIC meeting this month. They are taking a quiet month to regroup after a very exciting 2 years. But for anybody who hasn't heard, Deanna Dawson will be leaving SCA as executive director to become executive director for the Association of Washington Cities in mid-June. One of the pleasures of having been on SCA for 12 years now is I got to see, she just transformed PIC and transformed SCA and just did an amazing job. An incredible amount of work that she made look easy, but I know it wasn't easy at all. So I'm just very excited for her and for all of us that we'll get to see her leadership at AWC. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Deputy Council President Hall?
No report this evening.
Thanks. The next item on the agenda is the mayor's report. There will be an executive session this evening to discuss property acquisition per RCW 42.30.110(1)(b), and the item is expected to take approximately 20 minutes. No action is anticipated to follow in open session. I'd also like to welcome one of our guests this evening, Drew Turinsky. I am pleased to welcome Drew to the city of Issaquah. Drew is the Deputy Garrison Commander for U.S. Army Garrison Carlisle Barracks in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, in support of the U.S. Army War College. Drew is in Issaquah this week as part of a joint program that the International City Managers and County Managers Association runs, and the U.S. Army sponsors for senior civilian Army managers responsible for management of Army posts around the world. Issaquah is one of 10 cities selected for this year's program. The other cities are Lakewood, Washington, Las Vegas, Nevada, Austin, Texas, Kennesaw, Georgia, Coppell, Texas, Columbia, Georgia, Live Oak, Texas, and Newport News, Virginia. Drew will be visiting various city facilities and meeting with not only city staff, but staff from area cities about a variety of topics, including recreation, sustainability, and how jurisdictions work together to provide services. Prior to his current assignment, Drew served as deputy to the garrison commander for U.S. Army Garrison Casey on Camp Casey in South Korea. Before being assigned as the deputy, he served as the Directorate of Plans, Training, Mobilization, and Security with the U.S. Army Garrison Red Cloud and Area I in South Korea, where he was responsible for planning, directing, and synchronizing the garrison's installation operations. Drew is a graduate of the United States Military Academy and holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Engineering Management. He also holds a master's degree in Business Management from Webster University and a master's degree in International Relations from Shippensburg State College. He is a graduate of the U.S. Army Senior Service College. So we welcome Drew to Issaquah, and I'd like to invite him up to the podium to say a few words. Welcome, Drew.
Well, thank you, Mayor, for that wonderful introduction. And also thank you for you and your team hosting myself in this program sponsored by the United States Army. And your city administrator put a really robust schedule together for me this week. And I really look forward to visiting with everybody and enjoying my stay here in the great town of Issaquah. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Drew. We're glad to have you. As I'd mentioned earlier, I did an Affordable Housing Week proclamation, and the city of Issaquah is committed to ensuring that all people have access to safe, healthy, and affordable homes. So today I signed the proclamation. Affordable Housing Week is here to emphasize the important role that affordable housing plays in stabilizing our community. There is much work to do in investing in affordable housing for the long-term growth, stability, and vibrancy of our town. The consent agenda includes the city's 2021 housing report card, which shows the city's progress toward implementing the 2017 Housing Strategy Work Plan, aimed at achieving the type of housing growth and development patterns that support and define the community's quality of life. The 2021 report indicates that the city has room to improve in providing affordable housing units, including investments in density and multifamily housing. In 2021, 105 new housing units were constructed in Issaquah. Of those units, 70% were single-family units built on previously undeveloped land. This is a reversal from 2020, when 93% of new construction was multifamily housing that included apartments, townhomes, and senior living units. Limited infill projects are not sufficient to meet the demand for affordable housing, nor to meet the requirements under the state mandate. Issaquah must use redevelopment to focus dense, inclusionary multifamily housing in central Issaquah, especially within the Regional Growth Center. And we must do more to ensure that Issaquah is an affordable, inclusive, and vibrant place to live. The last item I have today is a series of upcoming community events. Dodgeball and Donuts. The Youth Advisory Board is hosting a dodgeball tournament on Saturday, May 7th from 7 to 9 p.m. The teams consist of 5 high school teens and 1 Issaquah police officer and will compete for a dodgeball championship trophy. Donuts and t-shirts will be awarded to all who register, and registration is available on the City of Issaquah's website. There is an open house coming up on Title 18, Zoning and Uses. On May 10th, the city will host a virtual open house to answer the public's question on the zoning and uses discussion drafts. More information is available on the city's website. Recycling and Waste Webinar, Where Does It Go? Please join Recology in the city for a webinar on May 20th at noon to learn what happens to recyclable material after it leaves our homes. Registration is free and is available on the city's website. And the last community event is a historic pub crawl. The Downtown Issaquah Association, partnering with the Issaquah History Museum, are pleased to announce the 2022 tour dates for the historic pub crawl. Book your tickets now for one of 3 historic pub crawls to learn about Issaquah's colorful history of murder, mayhem, and prohibition. Find out more and book your tickets on the Downtown Issaquah Association website. And that concludes the mayor's report. The next item on our agenda this evening is an informational update. ID 1070-2022 Legislative Report. The council is being asked to receive this report this evening, and I'd like to invite the city's lobbyist, Shelley Helder, with Gordon Thomas Honeywell Governmental Affairs, to make a presentation. Welcome, Shelley.
Thank you, Mayor Pauley, Deputy Council President Hall, council members. It's good to be with you this evening. As Mayor Pauley said, I am Shelley Helder, and I have the privilege of serving as the city's government affairs consultant, or also known as your contract lobbyist. Next slide. This evening, I'm going to be providing a general update on the city's legislative program. And to do that, I'll provide a high-level overview of state elections. We'll review the city's recent legislative successes and some challenges ahead, and then wrap up with some recommendations about things to consider to prepare for the 2023 session. Next slide. So, with the legislative session concluded, legislators are beginning to shift their focus to the November 2022 elections. Every House seat and half of the Senate seats are up for election, and everyone will be subject to the new district boundaries. Of note, neither of the city's senators are up for election this cycle, but all of the House members are. The current political party breakdown has Democrats with a strong majority. In this upcoming election cycle, Republicans are hoping to pick up seats. And for the most part, Democrats concede that they will likely lose some seats. And that's typically the case in a midterm election when that party has the White House. The 2023 legislature, I think it's generally understood, is going to be slightly more moderate than it is currently. But the degree to how moderate it is still too early to know. Regardless of political affiliation, there is bound to be significant turnover in the legislature, so we'll have lots of new faces. There are 19 legislators that have decided not to run for re-election after their term expires in December.
And then additionally, 6 of those vacant Senate seats are going to be pursued by members of the House. So that means the House seats will be an open seat. A few of the retirements that I thought would be noteworthy for the city to be aware of. First is Senator David Frocht. He has served as the Senate capital budget lead for the last several years, and he has announced his retirement, meaning that come 2023, the Senate Democrats will need to identify a new capital budget lead. Another noteworthy retirement is Senator Reuven Carlisle, and his retirement is noteworthy because his House seat counterpart, Representative Noelle Frame, is seeking the Senate seat that Senator Carlisle is leaving. She is the current chair of the House Finance Committee, meaning there will be a new Finance Committee chair next year. That committee is the committee that vets all tax policy for the state. So it's an influential role. So, like I said, not only turnover with new faces, but also turnover with positions of leadership and influence. And then finally, there is a special election for the Secretary of State. Current Secretary of State Steve Hobbs was appointed to that position late last year, and he is up for election for that position. He has 2 challengers, one of whom is currently serving in the Senate and is not up for election. And so if he is not successful in his bid for the Secretary of State, he will retain his current position. So that's a really high-level summary of the political landscape. And before we zoom in on some of the more city-specific issues, I wanted to show how the city's legislative districts have shifted with redistricting. So next slide. This first image is the 5th legislative district. The hashed out area is the old portion of the district, and the pink area is the new portion. And as you can tell, the district shrunk geographically, and it shifted just to the south slightly. Next slide. And then this is the 41st legislative district. Again, the hashed out area is the old portion of the district, and the pink is the new. And the 41st district did lose a small portion of the city of Issaquah, and that moved to the 5th. But the 41st is still considered part of the city's legislative delegation. And I think it's important to note that the city has 2 legislative delegations. This means that you have double the number of people in Olympia representing you and the city's priorities. And I think it's something as a city that we can capitalize on. So moving on to successes and challenges, I've broken this down to first talk about the transportation successes and challenges, and then we'll talk about capital. So our biggest success from this past legislative session is the full funding of the widening of State Route 18. And I wish that there was a crowd so we could all cheer, and because it is really such an amazing accomplishment. This has been a city priority for several years, and was achieved because we had a really supportive legislative delegation. We had years of coalition advocacy, and we had the opportunity for the state to adopt a transportation package. And all of those 3 combined made this outcome possible. There were very few highway projects that were funded in this package, even though it was such a significant package. Highway projects were not the priority. And so to have a highway project of this scale funded is significant, and I think is worth celebrating. So looking ahead, we do have one challenge remaining for this project. As I mentioned, legislature passed the Move Ahead Washington package, and it allocated funding to specific projects, State Route 18 being one of them. But Move Ahead is a 16-year package, and they have not yet decided how that money is spent over that 16-year period. So they did that intentionally. It's not like they forgot to do it, but they did that intentionally. And they plan to come back and with input from WashDOT and
project stakeholders develop a schedule that makes sense. And so that is work that remains. I think it's likely that many of the projects that were funded in the package will want their money in the near term, not in the out years. And so we do have some work remaining to ensure that the funding for the project is in alignment with the need for when construction is ready. And WashDOT has said that they could go to construction as early as 2025. So that's when we would be wanting the money to be allocated. The other city transportation priority is the additional crossing of I-90. And this priority faces several challenges. The city requested $3.4 million to begin the pre-design and environmental documentation. And the funding was not included in the Move Ahead Washington package. And it's unclear if there's going to be another funding opportunity, again, in the near term. If there is revenue available in the near term to allocate to more transportation projects, this project does not yet have the broad support that the Highway 18 project had. It also doesn't have identified outside funding sources. That's not always necessary for state-owned facilities, but it's definitely an advantage. I think those are what I wanted to highlight there. Considering these challenges, I think there are things that we as a city can do to increase our chances moving forward. Consider building coalition, engaging community members, developing strong messaging around this project, helping people understand the problem and the proposed solution, and then getting legislators out to see the area, not just our own legislators, but legislators from around the state that are influential in transportation. Shifting focus to talking about capital. So the city has had really incredible success with securing state capital dollars. In 2019, the legislature allocated $3 million to the Opportunity Center. And in 2021, the city partnered with the Issaquah Food and Clothing Bank, and the legislature allocated $1 million towards that expansion project. And these are, again, significant wins that should not be overlooked. But the city's challenge has been with delivering a project that has secured that state funding. And so as legislators consider what projects to prioritize in Olympia, one of the factors they consider is if a community has already spent the funds that have been previously allocated. And for many reasons outside the city's control, those funds haven't been spent. So as we think about the city's priorities and the next state budget cycle, we just want to make sure to keep this in mind and tailor our strategy accordingly. And I would welcome your feedback and ideas on how we can overcome these challenges, because I think they can be overcome. And if the city does choose to pursue a capital budget request, some things to consider are the readiness of a project. Any project that is closer to shovel ready is going to be more competitive. What level of community support exists for a project, and then what other funding sources have already been committed. Those are all factors that increase the competitiveness. So to end, I just wanted to share some recommendations for you all as you begin considering priorities for the 2023 session. And these are priorities I've shared with you all before, and many of them are, these are best practices I've shared with you all before, and many the city already implements. So the first is to establish a legislative agenda that aligns with the state's biennial cycle. So a 2-year legislative agenda. Again, this is what the city currently does. And second, it's important to have a focused agenda. So that's an agenda that has 2 to 3 priorities. This allows city's legislators to really hone in and stay focused on the things that are going to make the biggest difference to the Issaquah community. As a best practice, it's ideal if the city priorities align with the city goals, so that as a state delegation, we're working towards the same goals that the city's working on. It's not always the case, but it's good. And then to have the full support of council. And then finally, when it comes to considering policies, this is aside from the budget requests that sometimes are identified as priorities, cities tend to be most effective at policy advocacy in Olympia when it's a policy that has the direct impact on city business. So as an example, streamlined sales tax mitigation. We were incredibly effective at getting that mitigation first secured and then restored once it was removed. And that's because it directly impacted city business. And so I think it's just something to keep in mind as we're considering what does the city want to focus on moving ahead. This is all information for you all to consider. So before I wrap up, I just want to mention that there was a written report that I shared with you all. I know Councilmember Hunt caught a typo in it, so thank you for reading that report. And if you have any questions about that report or anything related to the city's legislative program, know that you can always reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. You want to stay up there for a minute so I can just check and see if council has any questions on the presentation this evening? Not seeing any. Shelley, thank you for all your work during session. It is great to work with you and to know that I have somebody who takes a call whenever I call. You are fabulous. So thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation this evening.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda this evening is the consent calendar, and it was distributed to council in advance. And if authorized, the items on the consent calendar will be considered together and approved by one motion. Have the payables and payroll been reviewed?
Yes, they have.
Yes, they have.
Thank you. Does any council member desire to remove any item from the consent calendar and consider it under regular business? And is there somebody willing to make a motion? Deputy Council President?
Thank you. I move to approve the consent calendar as presented in tonight's agenda packet.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any council discussion? Hearing none, the motion before council is to approve the consent calendar as presented, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. That carries 6-0. This evening, we do not have any regular business listed. The new business that we'll be going to next is ID 1137, new business request, Independent Salary Commission, council compensation. And the request of the council this evening is to provide some direction to the administration. So at the last council meeting, this item was presented by Councilmember G. Michelle, and the City Council approved with proceeding to the second step on this item, which is to receive a preliminary staff response. Following the staff response, the City Council will have the opportunity to make a motion to formally add this item to the work plan. And I'd like to invite Chief of Staff, Tina Eggers, to make a brief presentation. Tina.
Hi, thank you. A pleasure to be back and talk with you this evening. Let's see, I don't have a formal presentation, but I can outline some of the items that are in the preliminary response memo and then address some of the questions that we heard by email today. So you're right, we're here to hear if you'd like this item to proceed on the work plan, and if so, the council touch points by which you would like. So what we learned in 2015 from the Salary Commission that met then was that you need about a 3-month period to be successful for that commission to do its work. They want to get educated, they want to spend time researching, and they want to come to a conclusion and file the report. The team that met previous was able to do that in a 2-month period. It was pretty aggressive, but if we could block in a 3-month period, if this is proceeding, that would be ideal. The way that the code is currently written says that the commission would file its report by June 30th with the city clerk. In keeping in that line, we would recommend this on the 2023 work plan to start recruitment in January so that the board could meet in April and conclude its work and file its report in that timeline. However, if there are changes to the commission that you'd like to see made, that we can do that don't supersede state law but are within the IMC, which is under the Chapter 2.90, then we would want to hear what those are, be thoughtful about what those changes and the wording, and ideally that could go to council committee if you'd like. In looking at other aspects, the stipend program is one aspect that we would look to recommend that you include. If this group is convening, we certainly have available funds to support this addition. And that could happen by a simple agenda bill and an ordinance that could be placed on a consent calendar item. Next steps is, well, let me go to your questions. There was clarification that was sought about, is this compensation or is this a benefit with regard to the stipend program? So my response was, this is a criteria eligible benefit, and the wording that's listed in the municipal code that seeks that this commission shall serve without compensation is consistent with how we address our boards and commissions. And so it is not recommended that you would remove that language, but you would add it in the proper stipend section. There was another question that said, what are your thoughts or comments with regards to equity board? I think that's a great input, and that is something that we would want to include, and would look for your direction there. And then lastly, there was a question as to what our neighbors were doing in jurisdictions. I quickly was able to pull together some of those. Of course, my experience with the Salary Commission is that they're going to look at a broader bucket of jurisdictions, but I did provide that to you. And the salary data that we haven't had a chance internally to look at was provided to you as well, and would be a great point of data for a commission to look at. The commission that met in 2015 did say they highly recommended that the council reconvene a salary commission every 2 to 3 years. They felt very strongly about that, but they did not have the direction to make that so because of the way that the IMC is drafted. So here we are. It's in front of you for conversation, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions if you have them this evening.
Thank you, Tina. So we can start with questions. Any questions on any of the information that Tina presented? Deputy Council President.
Thank you. I was just curious if the administration has thought at all about bandwidth, and if there's any concerns about taking this on in the work plan as compared to the other cities' goals and initiatives that we want to undertake in the next few years.
Under the June 30th deadline, or if it was brought up sooner?
With the proposed timeline, so June, yeah.
That works nicely. It falls outside of our budget process because in the past, we've used 3 key staff or 3 key departments. One is someone out of the executive department to run or be staff liaison to the commission. And then we rely heavily on HR to present and provide data. And then we found that the Salary Commission from 2015 relied and requested financial information from the finance office. So I talked with HR, and they said that their collective bargaining is very heavy this year and will be beginning that work soon. So that was sort of thought in the past when that deadline was selected, but we certainly work at the direction of council. So if you wanted to change that date, we would have to look at the timing for that.
Other questions? So we're in a new process here. This is our council's new business process. So this is your opportunity also to talk amongst yourselves, make a motion, whatever you deem appropriate to do next. Councilmember DeMichelle?
So I will, I might need a little direction from Chief of Staff Akers, but I would like to move the main motion, and then I presume that we would take up other issues such as potential changes or discussion of equity board involvement in additional motions after the main motion is passed, if it is passed. Is that correct? If that's not too confusing.
You can proceed in that route. You certainly can make the motion by which you desire the outcome so that you're not having to make amendments. It's really the course by which you'd like to proceed through.
Okay, so I think it's cleaner to take the first motion. And all right, I move to direct the administration to add a convening of the Independent Salary Commission to the city's 2023 work plan and formalize the recruitment process.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember DiMichele, do you want to speak to the motion?
Thank you so much. You've heard my rationale for this earlier, so I will just speak to some bullet points this time. So the last time the council compensation was examined was 2015. It's been 7 years at least, and during that time, the city has grown by approximately 7,000 residents, from 33,600 to 40,400. And in addition, there has been no examination then for 7 years. The council, during the 2020 discussions around equity, made a commitment to examine everything we do through an equity lens. And that should include reducing or removing barriers to elected office for people of color and low-income residents and others for whom the current level of compensation might be a barrier to running for office. So this is not speaking directly to this motion, but I would hope that we would also add to the responsibilities that are outlined in Issaquah Municipal Code 2.90 to add the additional responsibility to view this issue through an equity lens, either through involving the equity board or some other means. And so those are my reasons for supporting this motion, and I will be supporting it, and I would urge others on the council to join me.
Thank you. So this is your opportunity to discuss this new business. Any other comments? Councilmember Ray.
Thank you, Mayor Pauley, and thank you, Councilmember DiMichele. I think it's time. I mean, it's been 7 years, and I think the recommendation coming from the 2015 Commission on compensation was to do it every 2 to 3 years, and I think that's good cadence. So I think it is time that we have this discussion again, whether it goes up or down or how it goes. But it's a good regular housekeeping kind of item for us to do. So thank you for bringing it forward.
Anyone else? Deputy Council President?
Thoughts are a little half-baked here. I'm not really sure where I land on this one. So first and foremost, thank you for testing out the new business item. I think this is a great issue to start with. And my sense is that compensation for the council is a barrier to service. But I guess I'm just at a point right now in my thinking that where I don't know that necessarily, and because this isn't an issue that didn't necessarily bubble up from the community, or it didn't come as a recommendation from the equity board. I don't feel a strong sense of urgency right now. So I think in its current form, I don't support the motion, but I would be in strong favor of asking the equity board to take a look at it and say, well, what do you think? We've charged you to really look at our policy and say, are our policies equitable? I think that this would be a good one to ask them to do. I'm eager to hear what other council members think. I think, Councilmember Ray, I think your point of this being a regular housekeeping item is a compelling one too. So I'm kind of stewing at the moment, but I wanted you guys to know that I'm stewing at the moment. So thank you.
Councilmember Martz?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to support this evening. I continue to believe that due to many things, politics remains a rich person's game in the United States, and there's no rhyme or reason. Both salaries for elected officials and for professionals in the field. We have a situation where I recently looked at state employee, staff members for state legislators versus county commissioners versus federal legislators, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. But most of the folks that either are in elected office or the people that do all the hard work that we talked about, some of the folks we talked about this evening earlier and honored, the salaries really are hard to have especially in Western Washington, to do those things and make a go of it. And so I am happy to see us take a look and see if our salaries are at the right point. I don't know exactly what the mechanism would be to get the equity board involved, but I just know that it's self-evident that the folks who wind up getting involved politically are the folks who have the spare time to do it. And so having a lower barrier to entry, to me, it makes sense that it would result in a broader economic spectrum of folks being able to participate, and that would be a good thing for our city. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councilmember Hunt?
Thank you. I will support this. I think that we have an established process, and that is to have this independent commission, salary commission, look at the salaries, and there's a reason that it's set up that way. So they are independent, and they will come to their own conclusion about what the salary should be in 2023, which was the year they were looking at it. The other reason why I support this is the commission that met earlier made the recommendation to look at every 2 to 3 years. And I do find that sometimes we let things become out of date in code. It's no one's fault in particular, but to make sure that we don't have things becoming out of date, it is best to look at them with some regular cadence. And in this case, it was brought forward at this time. We're already out of the time recommendation that was set by the earlier commission. And so I would think that best practice would be to follow that commission's advice and to at least have it looked at again. And if there's additional steps that we can add with our new equity board, I think that would be fine. But I also want to be mindful that we do have an established process and it's independent, which is important to the process. So I think we should go ahead and have them do their work. Thank you.
Councilmember Joe?
Thank you, Mayor Pauling. I'm in full support of this agenda item this evening for a couple of reasons. First off, the citizens need to know that if we do eventually approve an increase in the salary, it doesn't go into effect until the next election, right? That's not right?
We don't approve.
Chief of Staff?
We don't approve their recommendation either.
Oh.
Thank you. Yes. Before an independent salary commission, that is the case. The council created one in 2015, and the decision that they make is enacted by them without action by the council. It becomes part of the budget. If there is a decrease, though, it would not impact the position until the term had ended.
Okay, thank you. I'm working off of 2015 law. My apologies. If I were in court, I'd be chastised by the judge. Secondly, I think as a housekeeping rule, it does need to be looked at it. Again, we do let things kind of slip from time to time, and we need to stay on top of these items. In terms of barriers to entry that Councilmember Martz brought up, I think that's a really good point. And when we talk about what we might recommend to the Equity Commission, I'd like us to consider whether or not there are other items that are barriers to entry that we might consider in terms of maybe the filing fee, or maybe there's a stipend for the election for people that they could get if they wanted to apply for it. But I'll just throw that out for another conversation later if this motion should be approved.
Thank you, Councilmember Joe. Any other comments?
Madam Mayor? My apology. I did not answer your full question earlier. The date by which action would be implemented is dependent on the independent salary commission. So they could say effective immediately, effective 6 months later. They could split it out. They could add a COLA. There's a whole bunch of nuances that they could do, and it's contingent upon the direction of the commission.
Thank you, Chief Staff Eggers. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tina. Deputy Council President?
Thank you for allowing me to make a second comment, and thank you all for your comments. I'm convinced. So I'll support the motion, but I did want to go back to the administration again and ask about, there's been some discussion here about the equity board. How under the current motion, how could we involve equity board involvement? on this issue.
City Administrator or Chief of Staff, who are we getting?
Let me give it a try. Councilmember, from the administration's perspective, I think as we've talked with Councilmember DiMichele, an additional motion may be instructive for how the equity board would be included. So either at the council's discretion, but I think Councilmember DiMichele is thinking about a motion that would have that direction included.
Councilmember DiMichele, are you looking for a friendly amendment to your motion that the second might agree to?
Thank you. I just got a kick. Oh dear. I was looking at the second motion that was put forward. And this would. I thought it was probably too much to put into one motion. This would direct the administration to bring forward potential changes to IMC 2.9, and we would start that by referring it to the Services, Safety, and Parks Committee for vetting and then come back with a recommendation. And so that would involve exactly whether we involve the equity board or if we do, we assign us additional responsibilities to the Salary Review Commission without involving the equity board. So basically that would refer it to the committee to delve into that deeper and come back with a recommendation.
So I have a question for Chief of Staff and City Clerk. That's a very different motion. Would we have to dispense with the first motion to provide the second one?
Mayor, I think that you could handle these other optional motions in two different ways. I think they could be entirely independent of each other, so you could dispense of the first one and then if someone wanted to proceed. That's probably the cleanest.
And I think the second one for the Chief of Staff is we'll get to it second, but the second motion that was just talked about with Councilmember DiMichele talks about Services, Safety, and Parks Committee for 2022. So impact on staff, as per the Deputy Council President's question, still possible to do that this year?
Yes.
Okay, certainly. So Councilmember DiMichele, if you want, we can vote on the first one and then you can make some additional motions.
Yes, that was my plan.
Okay, if there's no additional comments or questions, it's been moved and seconded to direct the administration to add a convening of the Independent Salary Commission to the city's 2023 work plan and to formalize the recruitment process. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries 6-0. Are there additional motions? Councilmember DiMichele?
So I move to direct the administration to bring forward potential changes to IMC 2.90, Independent Salary Commission for review by the Services, Safety, and Parks Committee in the second quarter of 2022. Is that okay?
Second?
All right.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Not seeing any. It's been moved and seconded to direct the administration to bring forward potential change. Oops. City Administrator?
If I may, would the maker of the motion consider third quarter?
Yes.
It's May 2nd.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's the reason I was looking over there. Yes, friendly amendment for third quarter.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to direct the administration to bring forward potential changes to IMC 2.90, Independent Salary Commission for review by the Services, Safety, and Parks Committee in the third quarter of 2022. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 6-0. Are there any additional motions?
So there is a third motion here regarding the stipend. And so I move to direct the administration to return to the City Council with an amendment to IMC 2.96 to include the Independent Salary Commission as recipients of the board and commission stipend.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Hunt?
Thank you. We recently heard back from the administration about other commissions that have commission members that have used the stipend. And I think that our and it has allowed commissioners to have less of a cost burden. We do ask a lot of our commissioners, and it's great if we can have commissioners not additionally have childcare costs and other things. I think it also allows us to have more people are then able to participate in local government. And so I think for all the reasons that we initially created the stipend program, which we now see is benefiting our community, I think those same reasons would apply to this commission. I see no reason why those reasons wouldn't apply to this commission. And therefore, I think we should allow them to also be recipients of this commission to reduce the cost burden and hopefully allow more people to participate.
Thank you, Councilmember Hunt. Councilmember DiMichele?
Yes, I agree with all of those comments, and I would also note that the proposed timeline that's being the timeline that's being proposed is an intense timeline, and I think it'll be time intensive for the people who are involved. And I expect that we'll be also getting some rather expertise advice from professionals in the field of compensation. So for those reasons, in addition to the ones that Councilmember Hunt articulated, I am supporting of this as well.
Thank you. Any other comments? It has been moved and seconded to direct the administration to return to the City Council with an amendment to IMC 2.96 to include the Independent Salary Commission as recipients of the board and commission stipend. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries unanimously, 6-0. Are there any additional motions? Okay, well, thank you. The next item of business tonight is good of the order. And we have Councilmember Hunt with an item for good of the order.
Thank you. Earlier today, we had the Affordable Housing Proclamation, and we also had the Housing Report Card, which was on our consent calendar. And I wanted to raise two related issues for Council's consideration, potential discussion, and I also wanted to make some comments. So the first one is that we received, at the end of April, we received a letter from Arch, which had some which had recommendations and a draft language for those recommendations regarding tenant protections. And the entire council received this, as well as councils from many other Arch cities. And I wanted to raise this because I understand that our staff, Monica in Human Services, is looking into this and working with our landlords in the city of Issaquah, as well as tenants, and looking to understand how we might apply these within Issaquah. And then this would go to our Services, Safety, and Parks Committee, and then would be potentially go back to council. Full council. So I wanted to raise this because the letter went out to all the Arch cities, and some Arch cities are also currently considering it. And I think the power of being a member of Arch and potentially of adopting something like this would be that we all have similar regulations and all the cities work together on getting more affordable housing, which is such a need, and also tenant protections and making sure that people are able to stay housed and not be overly cost burdened. So I think having the same regulations across cities would be a benefit. And since this is being worked on but isn't currently on our planning calendar, I wanted to raise it for the public's awareness, for interested parties that might give us feedback on it, but also for other cities that we are working on this. And I think the power of being an Arch is working with cities on these issues. So that was my first comment. And
do you want to get some feedback on that before you move to your second one, or would you like to do both?
That I think would be fine because the other one I can do separately. So thank you for the suggestion.
Any other council feedback or comments on the Arch letter, the direction that the city is taking? Deputy Council President?
I just wanted to say I also support the city exploring would it be an ordinance? Yeah, this resolution that was sent to us from the Arch Board. In response to Lindsay's masters from Arch original email, I sent over a list of questions about that resolution. And I think I asked the city administrator that shared those out with the council today. So I would hope that if the Services, Safety, and Parks Committee considers this item in the future, that you also consider those questions and answers. I think it's a very interesting issue, and Councilmember Hunt brings up a good point. It's important to not have a patchwork of policy across the region that could potentially have unintended consequences down the road. So I would support us exploring it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilmember DiMichele?
Right. I also support this proposal, and my only question is there urgency? Is Arch expressing that they would like this done by a certain date, or?
That's a great question. I'm not sure that we're aware of that. I think most the member cities are leaning in on the request, but wanting to make sure that they vet it through their own community. And then I do think there are questions about, so who enforces it? Because the city can make a resolution, but if we have no resources, is this better served at a regional level and we support it? Is this something that Arch gets enforcement over it, which means an ask of the cities to contribute? But I think there's a few things to think through to figure it out. Tina, do you have any other information you'd like to add to that? I think that's about all we have right now. Any other comments? Okay, let's have Councilmember Hunt take up her second item.
Thank you. Well, I would make one additional comment. I think that we could also potentially benefit from as we see other cities in Arch, of which there are many. If I believe I was looking, but I couldn't quite find it in time. I believe that in the responses to Council Deputy President Hall's questions, I believe there is a city that has already adopted, or at least, okay. So we could learn from them how they're enforcing, and we could potentially have that be part of our consideration. Learning from other cities is always a good idea. All right, so then on the second item that I wanted to raise was regarding the housing report card. And I wanted to raise it because last week at the study session, I had a question about whether the state grant money that we were awarded was expected to get us back onto what I said was a track. I understand if it wasn't the original track, but a track for the housing strategy work plan. And so I wondered if the administration could comment on that. I think it is an emerging issue. It's an emerging issue of a lot of importance that we do achieve the goals in the housing strategy work plan, that we do, that we are able as a city to better provide housing that is affordable and that is available for people at different income levels. So I wanted to ask the administration if they had additional comments on that. And then I also in particular wanted to raise, and if there's council discussion on one of the recommendations that was in that item, which is that council may wish to consider a 2023 work plan item to evaluate how to incent development in the central Issaquah area and specifically the urban core. Because I think this is something that we have certainly thought about and worked on, but it really does, I think, we do need to take a deep dive and look at this and revisit our plans and look at what we need to revise. So I wanted to raise that for council's consideration and also support that we put that in the work plan.
Councilmember Mertz?
Absolutely. In the intervening years since we had our moratorium and course correction, I've seen just gorgeous multi-use development occur in both, particularly Woodinville and Bothell, that just, that's what I want, right? So we have cities, 5 years ago, we were trying to guess what might work. We now have local comparison cities. We know what's working there. That's half the battle. So 100% absolute support this.
Deputy Council President?
Also, absolutely. I would definitely support this work plan item to try to understand how we can incent development in the central Issaquah area. I have another thought too, after having read the housing report card. I think there's another kind of emerging issue in the market that's happening, and I just know this qualitatively, not quantitatively, which is part of my comments. It seems like more and more units that used to be homeowner units through home ownership are being converted over to rental units after being purchased by larger companies that focus on purchasing units across the region. Again, I just know this qualitatively from my own search for a condo here in Issaquah, but some questions come to mind with that, which is, what does this necessarily mean for the long-term financial health and success of our residents that live here in Issaquah when more and more of them aren't able to build equity and wealth through housing, and also what is the role, or is there a role for the city in this space too? So I would also like us to consider exploring this issue. I personally think it fits into the housing strategy work plan already, but if not, it could be another work plan item for this year or for next year. I think it might make sense to leave it for next year to try to understand the data that exists around this and to try to understand, well, what is the picture out there of this issue? Is it an issue? What kind of data can we collect? And then what are other cities and states doing in this space? I think it's one of those issues that it's important to have as much information as possible as early as you can, because it does seem like one of those issues that if you wait too long, it could potentially have consequences that we have no idea what those could be. So I would support the administration thinking about that, maybe chewing on it and come back to me with this too. So, and thank you for Councilmember Hunt for bringing up this issue and go to the word.
Any other comments? I'm just going to add a couple of thoughts here. I think this is great that council's having these kinds of conversations at good of the order. You have your June or July budget retreat. July, which is exactly the time that council will be providing direction on specific items that they'd like to see included in the next budget. So the 23-24 budget. So that's great. And I think some of the additional questions that Deputy Council President asked are good. But I expect during your budget retreat, we'll probably hash it out a little bit more so we understand exactly what it is that you expect. So that's great. Are there any other good of the order items? Okay. Yes, City Administrator Bob Quitz.
Earlier, when the executive session was announced, the mayor indicated that there would likely not be action. We would like to have the council consider making action. I would ask the city attorney if there's any other admonition we need to articulate at this point, other than the council may come back into open session with an action.
Yeah, the city clerk did hand me a note a while ago, and I was going to make the correction before I read the executive session notice, but thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, she didn't show me the note, I'm sorry.
Okay. So good with her notes. So, yes, before I read the commentary going into the executive session, we believe that the session only needs to be about 10 minutes, but council may be asked, depending on the contents of the session, to come back out into regular session for a decision. So I will change my script to reflect that. There's a couple of upcoming meetings I just wanted to mention at good of the order. The May 19th Committee of the Whole meeting is canceled. The May 16th council meeting, the anticipated agenda items include the solid waste contract, separate track for code enforcement changes, Title 18 code revision. So the last item of business we have this evening is the executive session, unless there's more good of the order. So I heard something. So as announced, there will be an executive session this evening. It will be to discuss property acquisition per RCW 42.30.110(1)(b). As corrected, the item is expected to take approximately 10 minutes and action may follow in open session. So as a reminder to the public, the executive sessions are closed to the public, and we will now recess into executive session at 8:35 p.m. For those participating virtually, anyone who is not part of the closed session can remain in the main meeting, and you're welcome to stay in this meeting until it is reconvened. We are back in open session at 8:45 p.m. and looking to see if there is Anyone willing to make a motion once one appears up on our screen? Councilmember Martz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we authorize the mayor to execute a purchase and sale agreement and other documents necessary to purchase the 2 parcels located at 645 Mount Everest Lane Southwest, also known as King County Tax Parcels 5706200400 and 5706200411 from Alan H. Berkwit for the amount of $350,000 plus closing costs.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any council discussion? Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Authorize the mayor to execute a purchase and sale agreement and other documents necessary to purchase the 2 parcels located at 645 Mount Everest Lane Southwest, also known as King County Tax Parcels 5706200400 and 5706200411 from Alan H. Berkwit for the amount of $350,000 plus closing costs. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay? That passes 6-0 unanimously. So there being no further business this evening, our meeting is adjourned at 8:46 p.m.